God they always came back
And
to
got
get
you.
me in Indian country. And, but I was just telling someone the other day, there's a guy named Jack Heslin who wrote The Battle of Khartoum, who's coming out with another book. I told him, I can't believe I was 23 and I thought I could rule the world and that I was untouchable. But that's the feeling I had, that
But that's why
I wasn't going to die.
I have a friend who says, in fact, you will meet him on September 19th when we do this again with other people, all wars are children's wars, because the people who fight the wars are teenagers and in their 20s. They're so young, and they have that feeling of
Invincibility.
Yes,
That's
and
the right word.
immortality.
Yeah.
And nothing can, they're going to just go out there and cure the world. And thank God for that, because if it was left up to us, maybe there'd be peace in the world.
Yeah, well, as I write in the book, I used to carry my weapon in a plastic bag so it wouldn't get dirty, and then I'd have to take it apart and clean it. And the only rounds I fired were like 6 rounds at a target. I never fired at a human being. And I was asked all the time, why am I not carrying a weapon? And I told people because I would have to shoot it at someone, which is not something I wanted to do.
I know my son always wants me to have some sort of a weapon to protect myself because I live alone, and I tell him, I wouldn't use it. You can give me whatever you want, but it's doubtful that I'll even think. I'll probably try to talk the person out of doing whatever they're trying to do, but...
Yep. When you say, how did it change you? My wife and I worshiped with the Quakers for a while. I was on a board at Westbury Friends School for 6 years when my son was going to school there. And so, it really took the edge off any hawkish instincts that I might have had.
Well, it's interesting that you said you went from dove to hawk, etc. Do you think, because I know what the Quakers think, do you think there is a just war?
Well,
it's like marriage. It always starts out that they think it's a just war, and then it somehow in the middle of it doesn't work out.
I don't really know. It's tough. If you were to ask me after 9/11, should we, pursue the Taliban and Osama bin Laden, the ones who were responsible for that attack, I would have said yes, of
Yes,
course.
but we didn't have to have a war over it.
But then, we go to Iraq, and that didn't seem like a just war to me, and I marched in Manhattan with other veterans, including veterans from the Spanish Civil War, who were in their 90s in 2003, 2004. So, yeah, I think there is a just war, but I haven't seen one lately.
Did you think World War II was a just war?
Oh, of course.
Yeah, well, that was probably the last one.
And I had 2 uncles at the Battle of the Bulge, and, my father served stateside, and, they didn't talk about it.
No.
My uncles didn't say word one about what they did. Can you imagine getting through the Battle of the Bulge with the cold, and they were both driving tanks and blowing Germans away and seeing buddies die? Never said a word.
Well, my brother, too. My brother's a Vietnam vet, but the only time he ever talks about it is, he will with my son sometimes. Maybe he does with his own sons after he's had a few beers, but otherwise. And he was stationed in Korat in Thailand with the Air Force. So he was sending off the jet planes to do their duty in Vietnam. And then I think he probably got involved in some action where he was going over there, but he never talks about it. So I don't know any veteran really who talks about it.
I find the ones that have been in the most combat are the most reticent to talk about it.
Well, it brings back a lot of
people acquire post-traumatic stress disorder for what may seem a trivial reason to us, like a dispatcher whose job it was to check the roster of individuals in the company as they left, and then check it again when they came back, and cross off the names of those who didn't make it. He viewed himself as responsible for those deaths in his own mind.
Yeah,
So
well,
we create
survivor
these
guilt.
prisons. Well, I didn't know what survivor's guilt was for 20 years until I finally got some therapy for it. You know, it's like, why me? So many good men died. You know, how the hell did I get through it without a scratch?
See, I had, and we only have a few seconds left, but I had a Gulf War veteran in one of my classes at Hofstra, and he was having a really hard time. He was at Fallujah. And I said, but all your friends, you lost 19 friends. I said, but all your friends want you to live for them
Right.
and do what it is that they would have done.
And if I could, just before we end, if anybody wants to buy this book, I'm donating proceeds to Beacon House. And my website is www.heroestotheend.com.
Okay, all right. I'm going to put that on my Facebook page.
Thank
And
you.
that's it.